We have just had this month's New World Community Q&A, and I do think that there are some interesting answers. Now, there's not loads of stuff here, but there's a couple of tidbits. Let's jump in and let's talk about it. So the first thing that they mention is that yes, there are going to be more artifacts every season. This, if I'm honest, was pretty much expected. It's also maybe where the life staff, the bow, etc. are. And it's just going to be a very simple, easy way of them adding content. Effectively, each artifact, now that they have the system, and I don't want to oversimplify it, is literally one unique perk that is only available on that, and that's about it. Obviously, they do have to customize the appearance, but I don't know how long it takes them to make a new sword or something like that. And you know what? I'm very happy about that. I've really enjoyed farming them so far. I do wish there was bad luck prevention, which, you know, no talk of yet. And we'll stay a little bit with artifacts. They did say that if you have an artifact and it drops and there's a baggie, but you don't pick up the bag and it despawns, then you can get the artifact again. That's true, apart from the fact if you have a bag and it drops and then you crash, then that artifact is currently not being made available to you. They are working on that, and that patch will likely come out around about Halloween, I think they said. So if you did get a crash while you were farming an artifact, it might be worth not trying to farm it, because it might be possible that you literally cannot get it. They also reiterated that there aren't really plans to do more Heartrunes. They think that they're sort of like got enough of those. Maybe at some point they'll do one, I guess, but for now there's no plans. And then sort of staying with Heartrunes, they mentioned that the Worm Heartrune in a couple of seasons might get moved because some people aren't able to get it, and you know, if you're like a solo player, you just can't get it. Now there was sort of two questions related to the worm. One was, are you going to make the worm easier? And the other one, are you going to make it harder? And that sort of shows the duality of the audience. Some people like can't do it and want it to be easier, and some people want it to be hard. And that's a topic for this video because they also talk about mutations and if they're going to be made easier. But for the worm, there are currently no changes planned. They did say that it might eventually get scaled up in many seasons. Now, you know, in my head, this to me suggests that it will be next year when we actually get some more vertical progression, like maybe like Gear Score 800, and probably in the next expansion, which I'm calling right now, and I've said before, I do think might actually come in the fall of next year, or autumn if you're British. I think it's a hint at the expansion, but you know, that's just my little taste on that. And as I mentioned, there are no plans to nerf M3s. Now, basically, if you don't know, the dungeons have been changed. The story mode dungeon is very easy, and M1 is, if you've got, I mean, if you're vaguely coordinated, it's not that bad. M2, you sort of need to have the gems and the stuff, but not that difficult. And then M3, in my opinion, is like falling off of a cliff. It's like much harder. Now, the question isn't necessarily about making them easier. They sort of made them a little bit harder in the expansion by making it so that you need to have like unique rends and weaken and this kind of stuff. Now, I don't really know what I'm talking about, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But the question was a very good question. And I think basically the point is that to make it so that you artificially need unique weapons is a way of making it difficult without actually making it any harder mechanically. And they said they're happy with that. However, I personally have always wanted the difficulty to become with mechanics, not with do I have the right gear, that kind of thing. They say like it's very hard to do as a pug, and the reason that isn't because of the even coordination. It's actually hard to do as a pug because you need to have the coordination beforehand by making sure you've got all of the right thing. And I think that's a problem, but they don't, and I don't really think it's a huge problem, but the no plans as is. One thing that they did mention about mutations is that when we do get Cross Realm, which is coming in season 4, which by the way, if you didn't know is coming in early December, then it appears that we're going to get an extra mutation available. So there's 2 mutations right now. They're going to be changing that to 3. And I don't mean the number of like the mutation levels, I mean the actual dungeon. So you'll have like Depths, Dynasty and Lazarus. And that makes sense. And if there's a lot of people who are doing them all the time, then maybe they might expand it. They never said that. I'm just sort of suggesting that they might do. Because a lot of people are like, when we get Cross Realm, do them all. Yeah, well, that's not really realistic, because it might be that there's actually just not enough concentration of people. So they're planning on changing it to 3, I think, and I think that's a safe number. That will be a nice little starting point. I mentioned crashes when it came to the artifact. There was a question here about performance. Now, they said that there isn't anything like they really want to talk about when it comes to performance. They have been doing like little ones here and there. One of the ones that amused me is that there was a hotfix that basically removed one of them because it was too like bad for low-end PCs. And yeah, I just found it funny that they were like, that didn't work, so let's just remove it. Fair enough, better that than just leaving it in broke, I guess. But anyway, they did say that there is going to be a big initiative for performance, and that's coming in several months. I mean, it was hard to judge that timeline. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like 4 or 5 months. That's when we'll start hearing about that. Now, what is that? Well, for me, it could be a couple of different things. They did mention DirectX 12, I think. Maybe it's 11, I can't remember. I think it's DirectX 12. And they have mentioned stuff like DLSS, because you need DirectX 12 to get that. But I also think that I'm sort of sniffing that there might be a little bit of console related stuff coming, but that's just my own little sort of take on this. I don't know if that's going to be related to this, but I'm sniffing that. So whilst I've been editing this video, somebody sent me this image, and somebody also mentioned it on Discord. Basically, in the background of the shot, they put this, a controller. Now, why would they do such a thing? I believe controller support is probably coming quite soon. I would go so far as to say I think it might actually be season 4 if they're going to start doing hints like this. And they did mention, and I'm not sure at what point I'm interjecting this, something about a performance initiative coming in a few months. Honestly, I see console in the future, and the fact that it's an Xbox controller, yeah, I can see maybe like Game Pass or something like that. This is a hint. This is not something to be ignored. They didn't have this last week. This is deliberately placed here. And for a game that is literally purely PC, this is some kind of hint. Don't miss this. It's important. Now, there was an interesting question about compensation. So basically, a lot of people have already got compensation for season 3. Essentially, if you like leveled up but you didn't get the levels, they gave you like in the top right, like a little box that let you get compensation, and it adds the levels to you for season 3. But a lot of people, quite simply, were full. We've already hit level 100 and it was pretty pointless. And I think the question is, what happens for the people who hit level 100 but they paid for the levels, so they didn't get any value? Well, it sounds like they're going to get another box that will actually add on to your season 4 season pass. A little bit confusing, and I don't know who will get it. I won't get it because I hadn't paid for levels. I think it's only going to be for people who paid for levels. The problem with that is, it would have been better just giving them Marks of Fortune now, because it would have been like, hey, look, we messed up, have your money back kind of thing. Making it be like season 4 XP, one, you're sort of shortening the XP, which isn't that content a little bit. Like, why are you making it shorter, I guess? But then again, they did pay, so fair enough. And then 2, it sort of feels a little bit more like store credit. But okay, we'll see if that materializes. It won't apply to me, so I won't be able to check it. A very quick question was, are there any more plans for gear sets? And they're like, nah, we've removed Ward and Bane. We ain't doing another just yet. Fair enough. There was a question about some upgradable named items. Now, it's very hard to know why some named items can or cannot be upgraded. It seems like that this might just be a simple bug. Anything that is a named item with the glowiness, I think is supposed to be upgradable. And if you look in New World Database, you can sort of see if they have the crafting recipe or not. But other than that, there's no way of knowing if it can be upgraded. As I said, I think they're all supposed to be upgradable, but they're not, and it's a bug, and that bug is probably getting fixed again in the Halloween patch, I think, which will be around about the 31st of October, and probably the same time as the artifact crash bug, although I think they may not have mentioned a date for the artifact one, but they did for this one. Either way, it's about a week away. And then we were asked about the next dev update. The next dev update is coming early November, and that makes sense because season 4 is coming earlier than expected in December, round about the 12th. So that dev update will be the first couple of weeks in November, and that'll be very, very interesting. That's when we're going to see a lot of the stuff that's planned, and I don't think we're going to get a roadmap then. I sort of feel like they're going to hold off the roadmap until after season 4, because that's what AGS do. They're like, well, let's wait till we've exhausted every bit of what we have, and then we'll show you the next thing. I do think a roadmap would have been better, many weeks ago, but I'll take it as soon as possible, and I don't think it's going to be in that dev update, but I would love to be proved wrong, basically. I would absolutely love it. We'll see. There was also a question about bees. I have no idea why they do these. I guess they just sort of lighten the mood halfway through. It was funny watching my Twitch chat get very angry about it. And to be fair, I was like, what is this question? Because you actually just want information and they're answering like silly questions. But I mean, it's just a bit of fun at the end of the day. Don't get too worked up. One big topic that I know everybody's asking about is Magnify. Now, unfortunately, the answer here is a little bit underwhelming. Basically, there are no plans to immediately change this. Now, that's not because they don't want to, that's because they're not ready with the solution. They're aware that this is a big issue, and they were talking about how it helps casuals. It does, but it's diabolical at the other end. I literally have 2 Magnify pieces today, and I was trying to get, I don't know what perks I was trying to get, maybe like 350, 200 or something. I can't remember exactly what I was trying to get, but I literally could not get that combination, and I only had 2 Magnify, and I tried every different food, and I tried every different way of getting there, and I literally could not do it. It's mathematically impossible. So Magnify overall is a great idea. It's a good concept, like, you know, make the pieces useful, but the implementation is just very awkward, and I really don't like it because you are literally stopped from making specific attribute combinations, and that feels stupid. However, they're looking for a long-term solution. I sort of wish in the short term they could just give you the points to spend. Like, don't make it so that it's that restrictive. Just say, look, you've got your 38 points or whatever the hell it is. Spend them however you like. Great, crack on. We'll just give it you that way. Now, I suspect that's a coding nightmare, but, you know, the way that it is, some people are saying you should be able to toggle it. Whatever it is, they need the solution to that because it's just stupid, unfortunately. Great idea, implementation, not so much. There was some questions about the servers as well. Now, personally, I think like 3,000 people for the resources available, you know, there's all kind of questions there. They were asked about like when they would merge. They'll merge when they're good and ready, basically. They mentioned the technology that they tested. It's not quite ready yet, which is basically if you get into a queue, that they're going to possibly sometimes offer you a transfer off. Now imagine that was in the launch, so everybody who's going into Marama and the queues were massive, if you could literally just be like, oh, I'm going to transfer off and play on a different server while I'm waiting, that would have felt really good. They mentioned it, I'm really happy they're trialing that. It'd be exciting once they get that in. I've mentioned a few times it would have been a lot better, you know, many years ago, but it's alright. No-ish, or whenever they're ready. Would have felt really good. They mentioned it, I'm really happy they're trialing that. It'd be exciting once they get that in. I've mentioned a few times it would have been a lot better, you know, many years ago, but it's alright. No-ish, or whenever they're ready. But yeah, that pretty much concludes that. There were some interesting topics there. I think we're going to start really getting a lot of information about Season 4 very early. There's big stuff on the horizon. Like, I'm sort of feeling like that performance initiative could be a hint of like DLSS or DirectX 12 and maybe consoles and all that kind of stuff. So we could be looking good there. Big shout out to my patrons. I really appreciate you guys. You guys make this a lot easier to do. And if you want to come and talk about this, I'll be streaming live tomorrow all over on Twitch, talking about this and everything. And of course, we're going to have the Balance of Power video on Wednesday, and they mentioned the classic combination of Ankh and Shuriken Heals. Let's see where they go with that one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Have a beautiful day, like and subscribe. Bye.